Welcome back to the channel. Wayne King here with 717 Throttle Therapy. I get, some of the stuff that I talk about here, and again, as far as I'm concerned, I'm hanging out in my garage and just hanging out with a bunch of people and, sharing some ideas. So, but I keep seeing some topics or some stuff, questions or whatever, that get asked on other social media platforms. Facebook primarily for myself, and YouTube, of course too. But one of the things is some people say, well, you should get a beginner bike. And some people say, no, you don't get a beginner bike. That's a waste of money. Well, oh my goodness. Here's a couple of my thoughts on this. And some people really get adamant about this. No, don't do that. That's dumb. Buy the dream bike right away. Well, my goodness, there is, to be honest with you, I don't know if I have my dream bike now yet. Because as the motorcycles keep evolving and things keep improving on these bikes, I keep seeing different bikes. Man, I want to try that one. I want to try that one. And I keep wanting to try different ones. So I can't say I have my dream bike. I don't know that I'll ever have my dream bike. So to address the topic of a beginner bike, the first street bike that I rode was a 450 Honda Rebel. And, it's a fun little bike. Was it the type of bike that I would enjoy having now? Not really. Well, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't, or I'd probably go try to find one. I don't even know. I mean, they still make the Rebels, but, no, the type of riding I do now, that's not what I'd want. But it was a great bike to get started on and to learn the clutch and throttle and all that kind of stuff, which that wasn't a big deal for me because growing up on a farm, I kind of knew a lot of that stuff. I knew how to work on a lot of that stuff on different types of equipment and cars and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's a little bit different on a motorcycle. I get all of that, so I get that it's different on a motorcycle, but it was a great bike to learn some stuff on. Now, one of the things that I keep seeing people talking about is well, it's a waste of money, to buy a starter bike. Not really. I mean, to give you an example, my son bought a Suzuki Intruder, an 800. He still has it. He has 3 motorcycles right now. He's almost as bad as I am with his motorcycle addiction. But hey, it's better than spending your money on a bunch of other stuff. I'm happy that he's buying motorcycles. They don't bother me. But at any rate, he has an 800 Suzuki Intruder. And we got that bike for around $2,000. Now, today, what's it worth? Close to the same. It really hasn't dropped in value very much at all. Now, if he sold it tomorrow, it'd probably be around $1,600, $1,700 based on what we're seeing with, other bikes in that condition. So, a couple $100 loss. But he's had it for 2 years, I mean, he's put some miles on it. Have we done a few things to it? The clutch, he replaced the clutch. So, you have, I think that was just under $300. He did the maintenance himself. He did 90% of it himself, and it was a great learning experience for him. So, yeah, I get it. Okay, we did put a couple of bucks into it, but that's for any bike or anything with an engine and tires. You're going to have some maintenance and you're going to have a few things that might go wrong that you have to put some money into it. So that's not that big a deal. So if he would sell that bike tomorrow, was it a good idea for him to buy that bike and ride it for a couple of years? Yeah, most certainly. Now, he recently bought an SV650. So he's been riding that a little bit more. He also bought a Honda Shadow, an 84, and I did a video on this bike. It's 40 years old, but it wasn't running when he bought it. He got it going. I mean, we bought the bike, we brought it home, along with a box of parts, and there were a few extra things that we had to buy. But he bought it as a project bike, wanted to get it running. He got it running, and we're looking forward to putting some miles on that bike also. It's a 40-year-old bike, but it's still in pretty decent shape, So, should you buy a beginner bike? What do you consider a beginner bike? I mean, for me, It was just the first bike I was riding on the street. I didn't consider it a beginner bike. I just considered it a bike that, hey, I'm going to have some fun on this thing and get out there and ride. It's not the type of bike, it's not the same bike that I would want now, but one of the reasons that I when someone asks me about it, I want them to think some things through. Think about how much riding have you done on a motorcycle? Have you done anything on dirt bikes? Have you done anything on mini bikes or anything? Have you ridden anything like that before? Because that comes into play. If you learn on a dirt bike, that's a great way to learn. I had an XR100 that I bought for like $700, sold it 4 years later for $500. The kids rode that around the yard. I mean, it was a great way for them to learn. And they dropped the thing more times than I can count. Heck, I dropped the thing sometimes, because I challenged myself on it. I had fun on it. And they learned on that. And that's a great way to learn because you drop it, big deal. You pick it up, you drop it in the yard or wherever, or stones, pavement, wherever you're at. It's not a big deal. It was a beat up old bike, $700. So what? You get a scratch on it. So what? You bend the handlebars get bent, you bend them back, I mean, that's a great way to learn. You learn the clutch, brake, and throttle, shifting, rear brake. You learn all of that. It's a great way to learn. So some of you, if you're thinking, look, do I get a beginner bike or do I get my dream bike? Well, it kind of depends on what your dream bike is. If you're sitting there saying, man, I really want X bike, and it's a 900-pound touring bike you've never ridden before, slow down a little bit. You're most likely looking at $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 for that bike, or, maybe you're getting a fairly used one and it's, you might be able to get it for 10 or 15. I get it. You can get cheaper ones, but you're going to be spending a pretty decent chunk of change here. So you might want to just slow down a little bit and say, hey, let me learn on something else. Maybe get a, Suzuki Boulevard, the C90. I mean, I've been pricing them just because I felt like it. I'm constantly looking at that type of stuff online and stuff, and you can get one of those for like $5,000. Maybe get one of those, ride it for 2-3 years, and so you don't have as much money into the bike, so you're not going to lose as much, obviously. But another thing that I see people doing, and the reason I caution you against, if you're a new rider and you're just getting started, the reason I caution you against, maybe that 800 or 900 pound dream bike, well, I've seen, and I see it too often, put it that way. I see people that they spent $20,000+ on a bike, and they are so afraid of leaning that bike. They're afraid of dropping a heavy touring bike or a heavy expensive bike. And so they're so cautious with them. I see them duck walking and making U-turns and stuff. And if you don't know what duck walking is, that's a term where you're putting your feet down and you look like a duck when you're walking your bike around a U-turn or something. They didn't take the time to learn to ride, and they're a little nervous on a bigger bike. Whereas on a smaller bike, it's not as heavy. You might be more inclined to lean the bike a little bit more, a smaller, cheaper bike. So that's some things to think about. My son, and I bought a little Benelli. It's a 135. I mean, this thing is a blast. It's so much fun. It doesn't have a lot of power. It's funny because the website claims that these bikes will go, it's a 135. They claim that these bikes will go 72 miles per hour. I have never had that bike at 72 miles per hour, and I have held that throttle flat many times. 55, 56, it's maxed out if I'm on, a level. So I haven't had it up to 61 miles per hour, but that was going downhill, so It's not a fast bike, but it's a fun bike. I call it a grown kid mini bike that's street legal. You know, it's got your turn signals, it's a registered bike. It's got turn signals, brake lights, headlight and everything. And it's just a fun little bike to get out and do some, go for a little ice cream run or something. It's not something that I want to put more than 50 or 60 miles on at a shot. It's not that comfortable. But it's just a fun little bike to get out and kind of rip around on. It's not very heavy. It's a great bike for somebody to learn on. And that's actually why I got it. I got for some people, you know what, they don't know anything about, they don't know the difference between the, front brake and the clutch. So it's a great bike to get started, to just go out in the parking lot and learn the fundamentals on that bike. And that's really why I bought it. But I'm having fun with it, just ripping around on it too, Now, my son took that out to a parking lot, and he's the type of guy that he really challenges himself, and he pushes himself. When he first started riding, he went around this neighborhood, probably 100 times, because I told him, he wasn't legal to go out on the roadway yet, so I said, stay in the neighborhood, and I bet you he rode around here 100 times. We have a cul-de-sac at the end of the one street here, and I told him, go down there, practice your U-turns, practice some weaving, and here in the yard and in the driveway, practice this stuff. And he did. He did a great job. And then when he was able to get his license, his motorcycle license, he passed with flying colors. He did a great job. But that was because he practiced a lot. But he took this Benelli, and he showed me the video, because he set up his video camera, and he was practicing. He wanted to see how far he could lean the thing and all of this. He's practicing some of his body position on the bike and that type of stuff that I showed him. And he's been doing this on the other street bikes, but he just wanted to get a little more aggressive with it. And so I said, take the Benelli, go, because if you drop that thing, so what? Pick it up, do it again, keep practicing. So that's what he did. And he did drop it. He had video of it, we were kind of chuckling, but he was able to videotape himself and then look back and say, oh, this is what I should have done a little bit differently. This is what I need to work on, and that kind of stuff. So, if you have the opportunity to learn on maybe a dirt bike or a lighter bike somewhere, maybe a friend or somebody has one that, you can use in their neighborhood, or maybe on a farm somewhere, that type of thing. I don't know. It's different for each person's situation, might be a little bit different. But the bottom line, I highly recommend learning on something that's not a $20,000 touring bike, 800-900 pound bike. Learn on something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to manage. And then go get yourself, a bigger bike, maybe 2-3 years down the road. Something like that. But beginner bike, yes, no. Get yourself a bike that you're comfortable on, that fits you, and get out and learn to ride. Practice, practice, practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's the most important thing. Practice on what you have. Now, my wife, she did learn. She rode around the neighborhood a couple of times on our son's, it would have been the 800 Intruder. But it's not what she wanted. And she said, I really want to get my own. And then she did find a bike that she really wanted and that she loved. And we ended up buying that, and she loves that bike. But, she did start off practicing on the Suzuki Intruder, In my mind, I told her, look, practice on a $2,000 bike. You drop it, big deal. Rather than, a $20,000 bike. So that's my take. But hey, if you've got different ideas, go ahead. Put the comments out there and share maybe your journey or whatever. But that's a little bit of how I did it and how I recommend others to do it. All right, over and out. Enjoy your evening.